Welcome back everybody to this intermediate and advanced Civil 3D video series. In the previous 3 videos, I believe, we have looked at dynamic blocks. We haven't gone through absolutely everything that there is to do with dynamic blocks, and take a look in the help option. Just experiment and play around with the settings that are in there. This last video on dynamic blocks here is going to just show you that what we could do, the more options we can put in dynamic blocks, and just what I've experienced and played with over the past couple years here. So as you see here, I've got my scale bars for the 3 different paper sizes. I have a north arrow. I have that groundwater arrow that we looked at. I also have a detail callout bubble. So another thing with dynamic blocks is we can put attributes in them. So if I double click on this, I could say that this is detail C on page 22. So attributes can also be placed into these dynamic blocks, and they can be made to flip and rotate and adjust the base point and whatnot. So just to go into the block editor and view this one, all I've applied was a couple flip states, and if I hover over the what's being flipped, I've basically come in here and I've selected everything to get flipped, including that base point grip, so I can move it as needed. So I have a vertical flip state and I've got a horizontal flip state. And then this one I've also specified before I exit, the base point is always going to be at the end of this arrow, because when I do flip it over, I want that base point to move, so I can adjust the label as needed, or I could adjust this as needed. So that base point moves as I flip things around. So if I flip it over to the right, we see the base point is now over here. So that is another way you can use that base point command to move your base point itself. I have a culvert block, either a proposed or a design. So I have the visibility state, I have a stretch state, and I also have the rotate in this one as well. Some rotate and stretching, rotate and stretching. This one is a visibility state for different kinds of issues. What do we issue the drawing for? This is probably one of the most detailed ones that I do happen to have. It is a section marker, so we can place it on the end of alignment or through a detail or on a detail page cutting through a certain section. Inside of this, I have 4 pieces of 4 attributes. I have a couple rotates, I have some stretches, I have some flips. So taking a look inside of this, each one of these circles rotates independently. So if I look at this, if I click on this, these rotate. If I click on this, the entire thing rotates. So this is, and I'll demo it when we get out of the block editor, but it's so we can keep all the text right side up. I have a stretch distance between the two, and I have a flip command, so it flips the entire thing up and down. So if I just double click, here's my 4 attributes, and I can type them in as needed. I have a way to rotate this, and as you notice, this text stays horizontal. This can also be rotated back down, and it's going to grab the text and the line on the inside, so it keeps your text horizontal. Also, I have a stretch parameter, so we can modify it to be based on the entire length of our alignments, and a flip parameter that flips the arrows back and forth. So again, I've got about 6 or 7 different dynamic block pieces inside of this block itself. So a lot of stuff can be done with dynamic blocks. Here we have another fairly detailed one. It's just for a note. I can double click. It is multi-line attribute text, which functions the same way as mtext. It's just a little more difficult to kind of format and get things set up, but I can type whatever I want in here. I have a stretch to the right, a stretch to the bottom, so I can adjust it to be whatever size I really want. I have a flip, so I can position this really wherever I want to position it. I also have a way to adjust this up and down, and I know I have the flip, but this works roughly in the same way. And then I also have this one, which usually adjusts the location of where this arrowed line is pointing out. This one doesn't always work, however. It tends to be a little bit buggy for what I'm doing. Detail bubble, 4 pieces of attribute text with a extension line. So a lot of things you can do with dynamic blocks, and then I have non-annotative and annotative ones. I know in one of the previous videos for the borehole and monitoring wells, we made quite a number of changes in order. We had set it for blue and green and pink and purple. There's something else we can do with blocks. Instead of making a giant block like that with all the different colors in, whatever layer this is on, so right now I have it on culvert, even though it's set to red. Now let's see if this works. If I right click and go set nested objects to by block, this picks up the color of the layer it's on. So if I put this on a different one, monitoring well, if I come in and put this on that. So we can change the color by just right click, set nested objects to by block. And if I go into block editor, this is set up, it's on layer 0, it's set to by block. So all the lines in here are actually 0, color 0, whatever color 0 is. It's mainly displaying the color that your block is, or the layer is. I have a side slope, so I have a lookup parameter with some flips, and we can display any different side slopes configurations that we need to. So this is just a quick example of the couple dozen blocks, 20-30 blocks that I have made and that I would really use on a day-to-day basis. Really look in the help section for what the other parameters are. There's some other parameters we didn't look at. Dynamic blocks are extremely powerful, but again, you can easily break them if you go into the edit block in place. So again, just be careful with that. Get into dynamic blocks and play around with them. Come in and out block editor. You'll be in block editor, out of block editor, adjusting things, because you're not going to find out how a dynamic block will react to your changes until you get it out into the program itself.